Full House family.
Fuller House is
It's called Fuller House now, but it's the Full House family. They back after 30 years. Time has passed like that. Are you the glue that kind of kept everybody together?
When you act with little kids, and Ashley and Mary Kate were 9 months old when the first show started.
Full House was more than just a family sitcom. It became a part of childhood for millions. But behind the smiles and heartwarming stories, the cast faced real-life battles, career changes, and unexpected turns. Here's the real reason why these actors eventually stepped away from the show. Join us as we explore the downtimes of these actors. Let's begin. The story that got everyone's attention. When people think of the late 80s and early 90s, there's one TV show that instantly brings back feelings of warmth, laughter, and simple, wholesome joy, which is the Full House. For many, it wasn't just a sitcom, it was part of growing up. It gave us catchy phrases, sweet lessons, and a cast that felt like family. Week after week, it filled living rooms with comfort and kindness, making it more than just a show. It became a tradition. But while the screen showed love, laughter, and life lessons, there were real stories unfolding behind the scenes. Stories filled with choices, personal battles, and quiet goodbyes that fans never saw coming. The magic began back in 1987 when television producer Jeff Franklin came up with the idea of a show centered on a loving family facing life's ups and downs. Inspired by the success of other family-centered sitcoms, he created a series that would mix humor with heart. And soon, Full House came to life with a group of actors that seemed to click instantly. At first, the show didn't seem like it would be a hit. Critics weren't too impressed, and ratings didn't explode overnight. But what Full House had was staying power. Through reruns and word of mouth, it slowly carved out a special place in people's hearts. It was comforting and easy to love, something families could watch together. And before long, it had become a household name across America and even beyond. But like most long-running shows, Full House went through changes, both on-screen and off. As the kids grew older, their characters matured, and the show started tackling more emotional themes. It wasn't just about silly pranks or funny misunderstandings anymore. Episodes began to explore grief, growing pains, responsibility, and other real-life issues. While this gave the show more depth, it also meant some actors began to feel the weight of change, especially the younger ones. Child stars were growing up in front of millions, dealing with fame, school, and personal pressure all at once. Meanwhile, creative challenges started bubbling under the surface. Not every cast member was happy with how their character was developing. Some felt their roles had become too small, while others found it hard to balance work with personal life. And for a few, fame itself became a burden. The spotlight that once felt exciting began to feel overwhelming. What viewers saw was a happy, loving family. But off-screen, everyone was trying to figure out who they were becoming, not just in the show, but in real life. As Full House grew into a television legend, so did the complexity behind the scenes. Cast members faced tough decisions, personal struggles, and shifting careers which affected them badly. So, if you've been wondering what really happened in the lives of your favorite cast during and after production, keep watching, because it's about to be revealed. Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. From the very beginning of Full House, one tiny character managed to steal millions of hearts, and she was Michelle Tanner. But what many people might not know is that this unforgettable role was actually shared by twin sisters, Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. They were just babies when they joined the show, barely even speaking. But as the seasons passed, fans watched them grow on screen, becoming the adorable face of the series. Their cute catchphrases, sweet moments, and natural charm made Michelle a fan favorite. However, when the show ended in the mid-90s, the twins didn't just walk away quietly. They began to take a completely different path, one that few expected. After Full House, Mary Kate and Ashley were everywhere. They starred in movies, launched their own production company, and even had their names on clothes, makeup, books, and dolls. For a while, They were America's youngest moguls. Kids all over the world followed their every move. But behind the glamour and attention, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. As they stepped into their teenage years, the spotlight began to feel heavier. Fame, which had once been fun and exciting, started to feel like a cage. They were being pulled in every direction, always watched, always expected to be perfect. And that kind of pressure, especially at such a young age, became too much to handle. Eventually, they made a big decision, one that surprised everyone. They chose to step away from acting entirely. No more red carpets, no more cameras, no more scripts. Instead, they poured their energy into fashion, something they had always loved quietly in the background. They didn't just want to wear nice clothes, they wanted to create them. With sharp business sense and a strong passion for design, they launched their own fashion labels and became serious designers. Their brand, The Row, grew into a luxury name recognized around the world, winning awards and earning respect far beyond their child star past. They had completely reinvented themselves, not as celebrities, but as true artists in a different world. But years later, when Netflix announced Fuller House, a reboot of the original series, fans hoped the twins would return as Michelle. After all, nearly every other cast member was back, ready to continue the story. But when Mary-Kate and Ashley politely declined the offer, it left fans with questions. Why wouldn't they come back, even for a moment? The truth was, the twins had already closed that chapter of their lives. According to those close to them, they had made peace with leaving the acting world behind. Stepping back into that role would have felt like stepping back into something they had outgrown. And for them, it wasn't just about not wanting to act again, it was about protecting their peace, their privacy, and the new lives they had built. Besides, one of them hadn't acted in years, and the other wasn't comfortable being on screen anymore. They weren't just saying no to Fuller House. They were saying yes to the lives they had carefully built for themselves away from fame. While some fans were disappointed, many others understood. The world had watched these girls grow up in front of a camera. It made sense that they'd want the rest of their lives to belong just to them. And in the years since, they've kept that promise to themselves. They rarely give interviews. They stay out of public drama. And they've become known not for the characters they once played, but for the powerful, private women they've become. Even without returning to the show that made them famous, they've still earned the respect and admiration of fans who grew up with them. And while the twins quietly stepped away from the spotlight, another cast member was navigating a much louder and more complicated double life, both on and off the screen. Let's find who the actor was. Bob Saget. When people think of Full House, one of the first faces that comes to mind is Bob Saget's. As Danny Tanner, he was the warm, overly neat dad who did everything he could to raise his 3 daughters after their mom passed away. He wasn't just a character. He became a symbol of safety, love, and those classic heart-to-heart moments that always came at the end of each episode. But what many fans didn't know at the time was that the man behind Danny Tanner was quite different from the sweet TV dad we all grew up with. In real life, Bob Saget had a very different kind of humor. While he played one of the cleanest characters on television, his stand-up comedy was famously edgy and often full of adult jokes. That contrast was something he had to juggle for years. Many were shocked the first time they saw his live shows, expecting Danny Tanner and getting something far more unfiltered. But Bob never tried to hide who he really was. He was a loving father and friend, yes, but he was also a comedian who didn't like to censor himself on. He knew there was a difference between the roles he played and the person he truly was, and he embraced both sides. During the original run of Full House, Bob never left the show. He stuck with it through all 8 seasons, even while managing other jobs like hosting America's Funniest Home Videos. He gave everything to the series, and fans could see how deeply he cared, not just about the character, but about the entire cast, especially the kids. Off camera, he was like a real-life dad to them. He mentored, joked, and looked after his younger co-stars, and they adored him for it. Even though he didn't walk away from Full House, he still carried the weight of being misunderstood. Some people didn't know how to handle the difference between his on-screen role and his real-life comedy. But instead of trying to fix that, he leaned into it. He continued performing in clubs and shows with his bold humor, while always showing up as the loving, loyal friend and father figure everyone knew and trusted. Years later, when Fuller House was announced, Bob was one of the cast members who didn't hesitate to return. He showed up in guest appearances and was proud to be part of the revival. Even though he didn't feature in every episode, his presence brought a kind of comfort and nostalgia that only he could offer. It reminded fans of the heart of the original show, and it meant everything to those who grew up with him. But then, in early 2022, something happened that left the world speechless. Bob Saget passed away suddenly while on a comedy tour in Florida. He was found lifeless in his hotel room, and though there were no signs of substance or foul play, doctors later shared that he had suffered a serious head injury, likely from an accidental fall. The news broke hearts across the world, but none more than the people who had loved him like family for decades. The cast of Full House didn't just lose a colleague, they lost a brother. The tributes poured in from everywhere. Candace Buer, Jodie Sweetin, John Stamos, and so many others shared just how deeply his kindness had shaped their lives. They spoke about his warmth, his endless support, and how he had been the glue that held their TV family together all those years. His funeral was filled with love and memories, with tears and laughter, just like the show he helped make timeless. Even after his passing, the love for Bob didn't fade. Fans held on to his legacy, not just as Danny Tanner, but as the man who could make anyone laugh and feel understood at the same time. He had lived a full life, making people laugh, comforting millions with his gentle TV presence, and showing everyone that a person can be more than one thing. He could be funny and thoughtful, silly and sincere, wild on stage and tender off it. And that's exactly who Bob Saget was. But just as some legacies are remembered with warmth, others faced unexpected turns that no one saw coming, especially for one beloved TV aunt, Lorie Laughlin. At the time Lorie Laughlin stepped into the role of Aunt Becky on Full House, she didn't just become another cast member, she became part of the heart of the show. And at first, her character was only supposed to appear briefly, but her charm, warmth, and undeniable chemistry with the rest of the cast quickly made her a fan favorite. Becky Donaldson, as she was known in the series, brought a calm and confident presence that balanced out the chaos of the Tanner household. She wasn't just Uncle Jesse's love interest, she was smart, grounded, and became a loving mother figure to the kids. Her character grew from a recurring guest into a permanent part of the Full House family. For many years, Lorie's real-life image closely matched the role she played. She was seen as graceful, family-oriented, and deeply admired by fans young and old. So when Fuller House came along decades later, it felt natural to bring her back. She returned to her role with ease, slipping right back into Aunt Becky's shoes as if no time had passed. Fans loved seeing her on screen again. She was still the same Becky, witty, supportive, and full of heart. Everything seemed to be going perfectly until something completely unexpected shook her world and left a permanent mark on both her reputation and her connection to the Full House legacy. In 2019, news broke that Lorie and her husband were involved in a nationwide college admissions scandal that took the world by surprise. It was revealed that they had paid large sums of money to help their daughters get into a prestigious university, using dishonest methods to make it look like the girls were qualified athletes. This revelation caused an instant uproar. People were shocked, not just because of the crime itself, but because it was so unlike the image Lorie had built over the years. The loving, honest Aunt Becky everyone adored on TV now seemed worlds apart from the woman making headlines. The fallout was swift. Lorie was dropped from future appearances on Fuller House, even though she had been part of the revival up until that point. The show chose to move forward without her, and her character was quietly written out. Fans who had grown up watching her were suddenly left with mixed emotions. Some were disappointed, others confused, and many heartbroken. The scandal had not only interrupted her personal life and career, but it also cut her off from the Full House universe that had once been a huge part of her identity. Lorie eventually faced the consequences of her actions. She served time in prison and completed her sentence, but even after that, the public response remained complicated. Some people believed she had made a serious mistake and deserved forgiveness. Others felt the trust they had in her had been broken for good. The once squeaky clean image was now clouded by controversy, and getting back to where she once was seemed like an uphill climb. Since then, Lorie has kept a much lower profile. She has returned to acting slowly and carefully, but the shadow of the scandal still lingers. And when it comes to the Full House world, her absence has been deeply felt. Aunt Becky was more than just a character. She was part of the foundation. And without her, something about the show feels unfinished. But while Lorie faced the weight of public scandal, another cast member was quietly carrying a much more personal battle. One that began long after the laughter faded and the lights went out. Would you like to know who this is? Keep watching. Jodie Sweetin. When the world first met Jodie Sweetin as Stephanie Tanner on Full House, she was just a little girl with big hair, bright eyes, and an unforgettable catchphrase. She brought so much energy, sass, and sweetness to the screen that it was easy to believe she was just as happy and confident off camera as she was on it. But what viewers didn't see was that behind all the smiles and charm was a young girl trying to figure out who she really was once the cameras stopped rolling. After Full House ended in the mid-1990s, Jodie found herself in a place that many child stars struggle with, and suddenly the spotlight was gone. The structure, the fame, and the excitement of filming had all vanished, and in its place was a quiet, confusing, normal life she wasn't ready for. She didn't know where she fit anymore. Fame had come so early that she never had the chance to fully develop outside of it, and that emptiness slowly pulled her into a dark place. As she grew older, Jodie began battling serious issues with addiction. She started experimenting with alcohol, then moved on to harder substances, and these hard substances became part of her daily life for several years. On the outside, people might have thought she was just another young adult going through a rebellious phase, but deep down, Jodie was hurting. She felt lost, numb, and unsure how to cope with life outside of Hollywood. At one point, things got so bad that she was using substance while giving speeches at high schools warning students not to use them. That painful contradiction showed just how deep the addiction had taken hold. But through all that pain, something inside her still wanted to fight back, and eventually, she did. Jodie began the long and painful process of healing. It wasn't overnight. It took years of support, honesty, and facing every part of herself she had been running from. She entered rehab, fell down again, got back up, and slowly started to rebuild not just her career, but her spirit. With time, she became sober and began sharing her story with the world, not out of shame, but out of a deep hope that it could help someone else who felt broken. So when Fuller House was announced and Jodie was invited to return as Stephanie Tanner, it was more than just a job offer. It was a second chance, a chance to come full circle, to step back into the world that raised her, but this time with wisdom, strength, and her feet firmly on the ground. Playing Stephanie again wasn't just about acting, it was emotional, healing, and deeply meaningful. Fans welcomed her with open arms. They didn't just see the old Stephanie, they saw a grown woman who had been through real battles and survived. And that added something powerful to the show. Every time Jodie appeared on screen, it wasn't just the character who had grown up, it was the actress too. Her story added a quiet, beautiful layer to the revival. It reminded people that life is full of highs and lows, and that redemption is real. Today, Jodie uses her platform to talk openly about recovery and mental health. She's become an inspiration to many, not because she pretends to be perfect, but because she doesn't. She knows what it feels like to fall apart and what it takes to put yourself back together. And that's a lesson far deeper than anything scripted. Jodie Sweetin may have started as a bubbly child star, but it's the battles she fought away from the cameras that turned her into a true survivor. Her return to Fuller House wasn't just nostalgic. It was brave. It showed the world that no matter how broken you feel, there's always a way back home. And while Jodie's journey was about healing from the past, another cast member found her strength by choosing a future shaped by faith, family, and firm beliefs. So, stay tuned to find out more about this particular cast. Candace Cameron Buer was just a young girl when she first became DJ Tanner on Full House, the oldest sister, the responsible one, and the steady rock in a home full of chaos and laughter. Over time, she grew up on screen, right alongside the millions of fans who watched the show week after week. She was the big sister everyone looked up to, not just in the story but also in real life. And when Full House ended, she didn't disappear from the spotlight, but she did take a path that was uniquely her own, one guided by deep personal convictions and a clear sense of direction. Unlike some of her co-stars, Candace didn't leave the show early or struggle with fame in the same way. But her choices after Full House began to reflect a growing desire to live a life that matched her strong faith and family values. As she got older, she became more vocal about her Christian beliefs and how much they influenced the kind of work she was willing to do. This didn't mean she turned her back on Hollywood. It just meant she started being more thoughtful about which roles she accepted and which stories she chose to tell. When the opportunity came for her to act again, she didn't dive back into the industry chasing big drama or edgy fame. Instead, she found a home with the Hallmark Channel, a place known for warm, feel-good stories that often highlight love, kindness, and hope. She quickly became one of the faces of Hallmark movies, especially around the holidays. Whether it was a cheerful Christmas film or a sweet romantic drama, Candace brought the same warmth and sincerity that had made DJ Tanner so lovable. While many actors chased riskier or more provocative roles, Candace stood firmly in her lane. She didn't want to play characters that went against her values. She made it clear that her faith was not just a private belief. It was part of her work, her image, and her choices. This meant turning down certain scripts and saying no to projects that didn't align with her morals. Some people admired her for this bold clarity, while others criticized her for not being more open to complex or controversial characters. But Candace never wavered. She knew who she was, and she wasn't going to change that for the sake of popularity. When Fuller House came back to life years later, Candace took the lead. This time, she wasn't just playing DJ. She was the show's center, the grown-up version of the big sister everyone remembered. But now, she was also a mom, a widow, and a woman trying to balance her career, her children, and her heart. Candace poured her real-life maturity and life experience into the role, making DJ feel more layered, more real, and more relatable. She wasn't just acting, she was connecting. Even as Fuller House wrapped, Candace stayed busy building her own brand around wholesome, meaningful entertainment. She later moved from Hallmark to a new network that focused even more strongly on faith-based programming. Through it all, she stayed consistent, kind, calm, and clear about what mattered to her most: her family, her values, and her faith. And while that meant saying no to a lot of things, it also meant saying yes to the life she believed in. Candace Cameron Buer might not have shocked the world with drama or headlines, but she made her mark in a different way, through quiet strength and staying true to herself. Her journey after Full House was never about chasing fame. It was about finding peace, purpose, and making sure that everything she did, both on and off screen, reflected the heart she'd carried all along. Now, while some found their paths through distance or faith, one cast member stayed close, though not without wrestling with what it all truly meant years later. So continue watching. John Stamos. Anytime Full House comes to your mind, it's hard not to picture John Stamos as the cool, leather jacket-wearing Uncle Jesse, strumming his guitar, flipping his perfect hair, and bringing charm into every scene. From the moment he appeared on screen, he became a fan favorite, the lovable rebel with a heart of gold. And while John never stepped away from the original show during its 8-season run, his journey with the franchise has been anything but simple. Back in the day, John joined Full House, thinking it would be a comedy focused on adult characters, something edgy and fresh. But it didn't take long for him to realize that the heart of the show was actually the kids. Instead of a typical sitcom, Full House leaned into family-friendly storytelling where children took the lead. At first, this shift didn't sit well with him. He even admitted that there were times early on when he wasn't sure if this show was right for him. He had come from a background where he wanted to be taken seriously as a musician and actor, not necessarily known for babysitting in every scene. But over time, something changed. John began to fall in love with the show's warmth, its values, and the way it connected with families across generations. As the years passed and Uncle Jesse became more than just a character, more like a second skin, John embraced his place in the show's legacy. His bond with the cast grew stronger, and he even became something of a big brother off-screen too, always looking out for the younger actors and showing up when it mattered most. Still, when talks of a reboot first surfaced, John wasn't exactly rushing to bring Uncle Jesse back. The idea of Fuller House sounded risky. He worried it might ruin the original's legacy or feel forced. He had worked hard after Full House to expand his career, taking on different roles in drama, music, and even Broadway. He didn't want to become stuck in the shadow of a single character, no matter how beloved. But the more he thought about it, and after talking with his old co-stars, his heart started to shift. He realized that the world had changed, but the need for kindness, family, and laughter hadn't. If anything, it had grown stronger. So instead of resisting, he leaned in, and not just as an actor, but as a producer. He helped shape Fuller House into something fresh but familiar, honoring the past while creating something new for younger audiences. Stepping back into Uncle Jesse's shoes was emotional. It wasn't just about playing a part anymore, it was about returning to a place that had shaped his life. Being on set again with the same faces, the same hugs, and even the same couch brought a flood of memories. But this time, the experience was different. He was older, wiser, and more grounded. Uncle Jesse had grown up, and so had he. Over the years, John's relationship with the Full House family has deepened. He's spoken openly about how the cast became like real family to him, especially after the heartbreaking loss of Bob Saget. That tragedy brought the group even closer, reminding them of how much their time together really meant. John has often shared how grateful he is for the journey, even if it didn't always go the way he expected. Looking back, John Stamos didn't just keep the role of Uncle Jesse alive, he protected it. He made sure that the character, the show, and everything they stood for continued to shine in a world that sometimes forgets how powerful simple love and loyalty can be. His early doubts gave way to lasting devotion, and that shift turned his story with Full House into one of the most touching parts of the franchise. Today, fans still see John as the heartthrob uncle, but there's so much more to the man behind the music. His journey shows that sometimes, even when you hesitate, life has a way of bringing you back to the place you were always meant to be. And for John, that place will always be with the family that started it all. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.